Hey, everybody. Welcome to Belly Up to the Blackboard podcast. This is episode 17. We're just going to be checking in. We are about 12 weeks into school now, and Thanksgiving break is right around the corner. We're also going to be discussing some stories that we dealt with or things that we saw in our first couple years of teaching, dealing with parents. We're also going to give you guys some tricks and tips on how to deal with parents if you're a newer teacher and what you may be able to expect. Please make sure you email us at bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, any ideas or thoughts. And please enjoy the podcast on X, Instagram, all your podcasting platforms. And we're going to start adding some videos to TikTok as well. So we hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Don't belch into the mic.
Welcome to Belly Up to the Blackboard, a podcast focused on the reality of teaching and other musings from and about professionals, hosted by Chris Munn and Justin Russell.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, bud. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has. How was your day?
It was good. It went fast.
Yeah,
It's weird this time of year, right? Don't you think it slows down?
I think so. I think the 2 times of the year that are like really slow is that late October into November, and then getting out of Christmas into spring break.
Yeah, but no, today went fast. How was it for you?
Pretty good. It was kind of an easy Friday. We took it easy. I had no issues, but I kind of hung out in my room most of the time until I had to shoo kids out of the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, until they forced you to do it because they were so loud.
Yes, I had a kid come in, say they were slap fighting or something. So I don't know, but you know how it is.
Yeah, that's the new Thunderdome, right? The bathroom.
Yeah. That and the old smoking in the boys' room, mostly. Girls aren't bad, but boys are.
Problem in schools in the 50s was what? Smoking in the bathroom.
Yeah, now it's vape.
60s, 70s, 80s. Yeah, some things just don't change,
Agreed. They morph into something that's similar, but maybe a little different. So,
Yeah.
Hey, what are you drinking, buddy? I didn't pop the champagne.
Yeah,
I was debating.
Do it now.
Do we do that? Right?
Yeah,
I was
do
debating on whether we do it
Yeah,
or
do
we
it
just
now.
go
You
right
can't
into
leave
it.
that out. No.
Okay, we gotta leave it. All right, here we go. All right. What are you drinking?
Sweet. I'm drinking some Whistle Pig 12, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's surprising me that's still abundant. Like, that's not a hard to find item.
Yeah, it's maybe it's just because I don't know, they make just so much of it, or maybe it's just not like doesn't have the cool horse on the top. Like
I think it's
Blam.
a trend deal. It'll come back around.
I think so. One, it's not a pricey bottle. It's like $125 retail, but it's pricier than like a Blanton's or I don't know what's E.H. Taylor. That's about one.
It depends, 70-ish.
Excuse me. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that, the scarcity factor of it.
Probably.
I don't know. Who makes Blanton's? It's not the same group that does Buffalo Trace, is it?
It's Buffalo Trace.
Oh, okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow. Sorry.
Distributor problem. So, tell our listeners, how was our visit to Templeton?
Oh, by the way, I am drinking.
Yeah, no one cares.
Jerk.
It's not alcohol.
It's not. We got basketball practice tonight, so I figured I should probably not
You're not practicing.
not show up and kick basketballs or yell from the stands. I don't coach it, so I could just be the drunk parent in the stands yelling. But I probably think that's a bad idea.
I want to advise it to listeners, but if you want a quick way of being, not having to go to basketball practice, youth basketball practice,
That's true.
that'd be the way to do it.
We
right?
could kick them out. Yeah.
Get kicked out to your car and.
Might not be a bad idea. But it's the school we work at, so I should probably not do that.
Probably not. You don't want to be that other guy.
Yeah, so that's all right. Yeah. So anyway, what was your question? Oh, Templeton. Yeah. So we had to go out and out west there for something, and we got to go see Templeton for the first time.
It was good.
Yeah, it was cool. I really liked the museum part of it that's inside. We didn't have a chance to get to the the tour. We didn't get to see the tour. We didn't taste, didn't sample, but the museum was cool. It had some typical stuff. First time out there, what is about an hour and a half away-ish?
Not bad from where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in central
Canadian
Iowa,
area,
or western Iowa, it's definitely worth going to.
You know, something I thought about on the way home. Well, actually, after I fell asleep a couple times. You imagine being a teacher during that prohibition period?
Yeah, what would that be like?
Good Lord, man. Like, not even from like a academic side, but how about a discipline side? Right?
Do you think it would have made it worse?
No, I think
Or would it have been easier?
I think people had, like, adults had a shorter fuse. Like, think about the level of stress, man. Like,
so you're saying like teachers that drank back then?
yeah, not just that, but you're coming out the crash of
29?
Yeah, 29. You're, you got crime happening everywhere. Not well, just like it is now, but like, geez Louise, man. Like, think about the small amount of populations that were in rural areas at that time. Like, geez Louise.
Now, do you think there was a rash of kids missing a bunch of school because they were helping with stills? Because there were still illegal stills, right?
Yeah.
Prohibition started in 1928.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there was a bunch of, maybe not a bunch, I don't know.
I think, and I have nothing to back this up, but
Yeah, we're just making stuff up.
yeah, but I'd be interested, like the migration patterns of school age children, because think about like jobs, they weren't abundant.
No.
So I mean, like it'd be more of a transient population, I would think, and then like with the gangsters and illegal rum running and all that, like.
Yeah, I wonder what it was. I mean, if you think so, where Templeton's at, it's kind of western Iowa, so there's not a bunch of stuff there. So how much is running through there, or is it just being made local and sold somewhat local? I read one thing at Templeton. It was I got surprised by the microphone right there. It was a kid that was like 16, and they were running it to Omaha. So Omaha's probably another hour and a half, something. So,
But you talk about like I would imagine. Talk about the idea about proactive or initiative. Like if you're a 12-year-old, 15-year-old looking to make some extra cash, man, like nobody's going like, hey, we help wanted sign out front. It was, dude, we got to make some money. Like, what do you want to do?
What can we do?
Well, Pappy's got a car. I don't think he'll be happy. He'll whoop my, what, if we take it, but.
Or maybe they're doing it for the dad.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, that'd be interesting, man. But anyhow, sorry to get on a sidetrack.
No, it's alcohol. It's part of the show. So
yeah, bam. What do we got on the docket today, man?
Oh, we're gonna talk about. See, we're gonna say early years, but I think anytime, just some of the weird stuff, crazy stuff said or done that you've seen as a teacher. I think that's what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. Like one humorous thing is, being in special education for several years as an educator, students say some goofy stuff. Like they have some different ideas about how life is after graduation, right?
Yeah.
But I continuously remember like daily I'd get in this kind of, back and forth verbal argument with a student because the student would keep going, but that's in my IGP, and I'm going, what the heck is an IGP? Like, and then he'd be like, well, an IDP, and I'm like, so you got the first and last letter right? Like, do you even know what that you're talking about? Well, no, that thing that you always bring up, the thing that it gives me extra time or whatever.
Yeah. Hey, he got 2 of the 3 letters. That's passing 66%.
So I always laugh about those things, or the kids that are like lawyers, right? They're like, well, you can't do that. Like, you can't give me a detention. Well, why not? Because I have an IEP. That has nothing to do with
There are some kids that are very smart and like know it frontwards and backwards, and which is good. They need to, but like they try to use it for things like you said, those gray areas, or they try to lawyer it of what's in my AP. Well, it might be something similar, or they'll just use that excuse to teachers. Right. Now we know better, obviously, because we wrote them.
Yep.
But like when they tell their gen ed teacher, it's in my AP, I get unlimited time or
unlimited bathroom breaks, right?
Yeah,
like,
unlimited bath. Oh, I need to take a break.
Yep, or I need to wander the hallway right now. Like, no.
Yeah, that's a big thing there.
I would say the crazy things are more and less from during those IEP meetings, parent not demands, but parent like suggestions, right, for accommodations and stuff. I remember there were several times parents would make like their concerns and then their solution, and be like, yeah, we're a school district. We can't do that stuff. Like,
I had a parent tell me I could hit her kid.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I appreciate that, but I will get in trouble.
Yep.
So I probably can't. But thank you for allowing
Yep.
that.
Like those safe rooms, those of you who do like, severe and profound, about safe rooms. And we've had, I've had parents before be like, hey, anytime you need to take my kid, just throw them in there and shut the door. And it's like, yeah, can you expand on that? Like anytime?
Yeah, you can't legally just throw him in there for no reason.
Hey, he's walking in the hallway. All right, you're going in there.
That kid's pissing me off. Get in there. Take a break.
I think the one that we probably all can relate to is when you feel like everything is going well in your class. Like kids are doing well, they're taking ownership, they're progressing through standards or whatever. And then all of a sudden somebody comes to you and says, hey, since your class is doing really well, would you mind if I put so-and-so in there? Because they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and they're not a sped student.
No.
I like that one when they ask like if a kid can come in there and like work or do something.
yeah.
It's sometimes it's just because the kid's annoying them and they need them out of their room. It's
Which
like,
I understand, but you get what I'm going. Like you're rocking it, the kids are rocking it, and then all of a sudden this giant spoon is thrown into your classroom.
It's like a
just to
grenade
stir
into
stuff.
the middle of the room.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I thought we were gonna have that recently with a couple kids that we had that are not doing well, and like I've got my math class, it's going smooth, the kids are doing well. Just tossing a kid in there. It's been in the past where they don't have like a math goal maybe, but they have a behavior goal.
Right.
So they can't do well in the gen ed class. So they put them in the special ed math class.
Right.
And it's just like a grenade. I mean, it just upends everything.
Well, and you would agree, the majority of the time we find that those behavior problems come because either because they don't have a math goal that's their academic, they're ahead of people, right? Or they don't have the skills to work in small groups. And so getting thrown into a class where the majority of kids don't have social skills, right? And that's why they're in there for. And they have academic goals because they're behind. So now you're just like double whammying that kid that, couldn't handle being in the gen ed class. So
Well, and then I hate when kids come in and they're like, I don't need to be in here.
right.
It's like, okay, but this says you do. So either talk to your parents or prove to me that you don't need to be in there. But and that's what frustrates me, because then you have kids and you got to stomp on them pretty quickly, because those ones that think that they are not at the level of others, which there's even in special ed, there's different levels of kids,
Right.
Academically, but it's like you have a deficiency, you need to be in here.
Yeah.
But you may not be at this level, but we're not going to disrespect or, things like that. So you got to really make sure right away.
Yeah.
You're not going to come in here and wreck everything.
Yeah. No, and I don't know, like you and I had kind of about this, but you've had it several times, and I'm sure listeners have had this before, but like if you're a cop and you get pulled over for speeding, like generally there's a professional courtesy, right? You're like, yeah, I'm officer so-and-so, I work at such and such precinct.
Yep.
And, there's a little bit of leniency there. And I'm sure it's annoying for the officer who pulls somebody over and that happens. I think that, though, in education, like occasionally that becomes too prevalent, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think we can all think of those administrator kids or those teachers' kids we've been around, and you're like, God, they know, like, they don't allow that in their classroom.
Or like you have them a kid and their parent teaches at a different school.
Yeah.
And they try to pull the, I'm in it, in my class, we don't do that, or this isn't how it would be run, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, And a lot of times, now if it's like academic, usually the parents understand, like, yes, my child is deficient in an area, but if it's a behavior student, it's like there's no accountability. Like, they don't see it. I love that. He doesn't do that at home.
Yeah. Yep.
But you will have the ones, and we've had some great parents that are like, yeah, kid's an asshole. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. Do what you need to do. I completely understand. I'm on your side.
Yep.
But then you'll have those few and far between, I would say, that those educators that just because they're an educator, they think they are better than you.
Yeah.
and you're an educator. You know what I mean?
Or that there should be not necessarily better, and I agree with some of that because for some people, but like more leniency.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you do the same job I have. You know how tough it is during the day. Like, and I'm trying to work with my students, and I don't necessarily have that brain space or the energy to deal with my kids. So can you take care of it, right? And it's just like, yeah, it's a fine line, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to build that capacity of, I'll go ahead and take care of it all the time, right? And I won't bug you.
Yep. I'll shoot you an email.
Yep.
Just to give you a heads up.
But then again, where does that lead? And I guess that's a pedagogical difference, right? Or whatever we want to call it. But no, so as far as those parents who come in with guns a-blazing, what would you say for our listeners who are first-time teachers or who are struggling in the profession? Like, what are some things that you kind of remind yourself of as that happens, right?
So two big things is, one, don't ever try to like be dishonest.
Yeah.
Or like blur the lines a little bit.
Yeah.
And two, you got to make sure you have your shit in line or your ducks in a row. Cause especially if it's another educator, but,
absolutely.
if you know that this is a tough parent, one, you just be straight honest. And I mean, you may have to be blunt, but they're going to appreciate that more than if they can smell that you are trying to, how do I say this? Not so much be dishonest, because I can't think of teachers that, I'm sure there are teachers that have done that, but
like, not authentic or disingenuous.
Yes,
right?
there you go.
Like
those are the good words. Yeah, disingenuous. That it's if you're like, hey, this is what we saw. Here's 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Let's have the conversation.
Yep.
And they may still be upset, but they're not going to come back on, well, you lied.
Yep.
Or you're dishonest, or you didn't follow A, B, and C rules, or pieces of the IEP.
Yep.
To where now you got your butt in a bind.
Yep.
So those two, when you know it's a tough parent, and hopefully, if you're a new teacher, ask your administration, ask another teacher.
Yeah.
If the kid's even if they're a freshman, email the middle school. Hey, how was the parent last year? What do I need to do? How do I need to prep for this meeting?
Yep.
But just make sure you're prepared. Being prepared.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you? What are some things that? Is there anything extra that you would tell?
Yeah, and I love the fact that you are encouraging educators, regardless of where they are, of just being true, right, to themselves. There's a thing about being honest, and there's things about being true, right? Like being true, there are times where you can word things right to help your cause that benefits the student, right? Yeah. We're not saying being 100% honest, dead honest, because that doesn't help anyone, to come in just...
Well, you can be honest without being an asshole.
Yes.
I mean, it can be like, Johnny, is at school, he shows up to my room 5 minutes late every day. And there's that, or it's like, Johnny just disrespects my rules. Like, that's how you word it, I think, part of it too. Because you can say that you can have the same message two different ways.
Yeah.
One's parent might be a little upset, but you're honest. Another one, parent's going to get pissed because of the way you're at, what you're using. And
I love the fact that you said, like, be on it. And, so something I wish when I first started teaching, somebody would have told me is, hey, if you are about to meet with a parent you've never met before, right? Definitely start asking some questions so you can be prepared. Yeah. Because the worst thing is when you have a parent whom a lot of people know come in guns a-blazing, but you don't know that.
Yep.
And you meet them for the first time, you extend your hand, you say, hey, Mr. and Miss So-and-so, and all of a sudden, just bullets start to fly. And you look like a dumbass, right? You stand there like deer in the headlights you look, and then you backpedal because you're nervous. Yep. And then all of a sudden, you're this incompetent, nervous, and regardless of your age. And so I always tell people the same thing. Start asking some questions, right? Like, so if it's a parent you've never met before, there's somebody in your building who knows that parent, regardless if they're from elementary or from middle school, but they know that kid, right? Or that family. And then I really did like how you said, be prepared, get your ducks in a row, know your shit, right? Like,
Yep.
I think that's huge. And one thing that I found, and again, I wish I would have done this when I was younger, is whenever you set a meeting, you do it by phone. And the
Okay.
reason you do that is because it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, what are some concerns you have?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to solve them on the phone, but what you do is you take note of that.
Yep.
Because then you can set an agenda. So when you get in there, the outline is, even if a parent's about to, to start shooting bullets like no other, you say, hey, here's the thing that we're going to do today. And then at the very end, I would like to hear your thoughts on what that looks like. And you always got to be solution oriented with it. You don't just come out and say, your kid's a dick.
Yeah.
You can say like, hey, I've tried reasoning. I've tried pulling your student out, into the hallway and having one-on-ones. I've tried doing this. And as you know, I've talked to you multiple times about the detentions and all that. But then again, you're not putting your opinion in there.
No, it's it's objective.
Yep.
You're stating fact. The one thing, like for me, I like emailing a parent better. Now it's hard. It's a double-edged sword because like that your tone can come off not the way you want.
Right. Yep.
But especially for a young teacher too, if you or maybe do both, maybe phone and then email. But the nice thing about email is then you have it in writing because what's said on the phone.
Yep.
It's you said versus he said versus she said, right? So that's kind of where like I like email better myself. Yeah. But yeah, your tone can come off. It could be misconstrued.
Yeah.
So
well,
don't
and the caveat to that is I do like doing both as well. So a lot of times before I call a parent that I've never spoken to, I'll ask around like, hey, what's this parent like?
yeah,
If I know that they're going to be one of those parents who are very supportive, proactive, then I will call. But I will send a follow-up email a day before that morning of or whatever and just say, hey, just wanted to make sure I touch base and ensure that these are the things that I heard, right? And that we're going to talk about today. Is there anything else you would like to add? That way, again, an agenda is set in writing. Now, if it's a parent that a lot of people are like, you know what? Like, oh my gosh, like, the last interaction I had with them, they called me, an incompetent fool. Or they're like, I had my panties in a bunch, which parents have said before. And so it's one of those deals where, like, if that happens, I still like to call, but I won't ask them, like, hey, would you, what are some concerns?
yeah,
What I'll do then is in the follow-up email, I will ask them because me having ADHD sometimes, then I can skim the email, right?
Yeah.
Like, and just take some notes.
well, you can go back and when you're preparing for the meeting.
Yeah. Because that parent's going to come and I 99.9% of the time will reiterate what they put in the email.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the thing about that is, I guess my advice to new teachers is, like you said, really make sure you are, I hate using the word control, but you are structuring that interaction so it's productive.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not saying you have to be, like the press secretary where you have a binder and you're flipping tabs on every topic. But you probably should have some pieces of evidence, whether that is the number of detentions, write-ups, how many standards, we're not doing well, or how many pieces of missing work or absences.
Yeah.
Any kind of printed evidence goes way farther than saying, hey, look at the projector, look at the screen.
Yeah, because then they can. One, I know a lot of parents like to write on, write on it, take their own notes, and it's easier to do that on that sheet. Even if you're looking at it on the projector, everybody has a paper copy.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with that, and I also think something that will save you. And I know it's hard sometimes because sometimes I even struggle with this just because time. Right, we all have issues with time sometimes. But if you can you finish the IEP other than what you're gonna put in, at the meeting, if you can send that ahead of time, it's like, hey, here's a draft, take a look at this board meeting. If you have any questions, it just gives you a chance to create or, have those questions. And then also one other thing is I would make sure, especially with tough parents, make sure your administrator's there. And if you're a young teacher, say, hey, I'll, I'm going to run the meeting. Now this is a tough parent.
Yep.
I just want to make sure you have my back in the meeting.
Yeah. or just even point out like, hey, I think this is going to be the contentious part, right?
Yeah.
Would you mind taking that part for me?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that would be good. And they can de-escalate a parent too sometimes.
Yeah.
That you may not, you may not be comfortable with, or you haven't had meetings enough,
Yeah.
or had those parent meetings enough to know how to kind of navigate that and maneuver it.
I do want to add for new teachers and to empower them. You by all means, if a meeting becomes too contentious, like a parent after 10, 15 minutes cannot be reconciled, and you are, regardless if you're with an administrator or not, there is nothing wrong with saying, hey, it looks like we can't come to an agreement on this discussion.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and table that. Or there's nothing wrong with you looking at your administrator and going, hey, I feel like this is not moving us towards any progress.
Yep.
Is it okay if we reschedule this meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you have to protect yourself, number one.
Yeah.
Because the more you let a parent railroad you, the more it becomes personal, and then the more emotions will fly. And I think those are hard things to come back from.
Yeah, and if it is a parent that is used to either getting their way or being that bully,
Yeah.
when they see that, it's like seeing a wounded deer or something. That they're just going to continue, know that what they can do to kind of get at you, and then they will continue. They may continue to do that. So, I think what can alleviate a lot of this stuff is communication.
Oh, absolutely.
You can never over communicate. Now, a parent will say, you could email them every day, but they would rather have you do that.
Yeah.
Most parents than not know anything.
Yep.
I know I don't want to say issue, but we had a kid that thought they were in the wrong class or why we took him out of a class is what it was. Parent was upset and they wanted to come in and have a meeting. Like, yep, let's do it. Let's meet.
Yep.
Came into the meeting. He asked a question. I gave him, here's why.
Yeah.
By the end of the meeting, there was no issue.
Yeah.
But it was confusion because when you send a message through a student,
Yeah.
and explain to them, and then it gets lost in it's a telephone game.
Oh, absolutely.
It gets lost in translation. Parent gets upset because of what their son or daughter told them.
Yeah.
They don't know really the clear story of it. So then they're upset, so they want to come in and have a meeting. Then you're able to explain it to them, and then it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So question for you. The difference before you had kids and now that you have kids, has that changed how you communicate home to parents?
Let me think. Honestly, I don't think so. Only for the fact, two things. One, my kids aren't high school age, and that's who we work with, right? So that, that may be a little bit different. And two, in my mind, like, I feel like I treat my students, like my kids.
Oh,
like, my expectations for them are exactly what I'd have for, my kids. So, they may think I treat them, I don't want to say harshly, but like I have high standards for them.
Yeah.
But that's nothing different than what I would have for my son or daughter.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, shut that door. It's one of those things that you just yank the headset off. But no, it's one of those things that where I hold them accountable like I hold my own kids accountable. So when when they're like, well, geez, this is you're always on me, or you're asking too much. It's like, that's what I'm doing. I want you to be successful. I would do the same, and I've said this before. I do the same thing with my kids. I don't let my kids, and that's even just like leaving a wrapper on the ground. I'm like, I don't pick up after my kids. I'm not going to pick up after you pick it up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've changed anything, but I hold them to the same accountability as my kids.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's that I hold my kids the same accountability as my students because I had them first. Students first. I don't know.
It might be, but everyone talks about having a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
That average, median line, whatever. However, and just a side tangent, how many times have you been at the store and your kids go, hey, I would like this. And you go, yeah, that's great. And then you go, oh, wait, I need to buy this because some of the kids in my class like it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that notion that you have kids before you have kids as a teacher is always there.
Yeah.
And it's not like once you have kids, you no longer don't care. But I do think my perspective has changed a little bit.
Has it?
I find myself softer on my own kids now than I am on the students.
Oh, yeah?
Just because, well, first of all, just like your kids, they make mistakes, but they're not labor intensive like
Yes.
a lot of the
Yeah, I'd
students
agree
we
with
work
that.
with, And so I think there's a lot more leniency just in the fact of because they're not quote unquote needing a lot of things. But I do find myself, though, the trade-off is I feel like I don't spend as much time with my kids because they are more independent, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not a critique or an indictment of students, but in the same token, I do feel like as I've backed off on my own kids, there are a lot of days where I do back off now on students. But I'm not saying that's the right or wrong. I'm just saying that's a byproduct because, like you said, I treat students like I would my own kids.
Yeah.
And if I'm starting to back off a little bit, then it probably is just natural I start to back off on students, right?
I think so. Because I think you've got kids that you can back off and they'll be fine.
Right.
But you have kids that if you back off,
Yeah.
they're going to run wild.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've had a student that, I sat down and said, "Hey, you're skipping class like all the time, not just mine,
Yeah.
other classes."
Yep.
I'm like, "Hey," and I asked him point blank, "Why are you here? What is your reasoning for being in school?" And of course, the candid answer is, "I want to graduate."
Yeah, the canned answer.
Yeah, the canned answer, right? I'm like, "Do you?"
Yeah.
Because, and I'm showing him the screen. I'm like, "This tells me you're not. You're here for, warm meals and Wi-Fi."
Yeah.
If you want to graduate, we need to change something.
Yeah. Do you think that's sorry to cut you off, but
No.
do you think that's indicative of education now, which is the habit is if you show up, you're a warm body, you show up at the start of school, you stay until the end of school, you're not an asshole, you're going to pass. And do you think kids, the second part of that is, do you think students truly understand the criterion to graduate?
Some, but I think a lot just think I just take these classes and then I
Yeah.
am done with high school at the
Yeah.
end.
My guidance counselor told me to take these.
Yeah. But where I was going with this was that we talk about like you can let off of some kids, So I said, "Hey, I'll help you with what I can. You need to start catch up on stuff. You need to start coming to class. That's the first thing." That next day went to all his classes, was never late.
Yeah.
One of our counselors was like, "Hey, tell them they did a great job. I saw that their attendance was great."
Yeah.
I tell them, "Hey, nice job. Let's keep it up."
Yeah.
That next week, nothing. Like it's like you can't give a compliment because they don't know how to take. Like they're uncomfortable in doing a good job.
Well, it's a skill, right, to accept compliments, and a lot of kids don't have that.
Yeah, it's like they're uncomfortable in being a good student.
Well, when things go well,
Yeah,
because they don't know that.
they don't know how to act.
And some of our listeners probably know this, but there's a lot of research around cortisol, right, levels.
Oh, yeah.
And when a student continuously, the majority of their life, has known nothing but the cortisol in their brain actually uses it as a replacement to endorphins.
Yeah,
And so when endorphins actually, like when you compliment a kid that feels good, whatever,
Yep.
and endorphins come in the brain, it's almost like a poison.
yeah.
And
It's almost like what cortisol normally is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so they have to get back to homeostasis or regularity, and the only way they know is when there's drama, chaos,
Yep.
or whatever. And that's the hard part. And that's something several years ago, as I was doing behaviors, I started to realize is that I would talk to kids like, "Hey, in the normal workplace, you cannot swear."
Yeah,
Like you can't drop an F-bomb every other word. You cannot call a kid a fat toad, or a coworker a fat toad, right? But then as I got to thinking, I'm like, shoot, that happens all the time. Like, think about all the industries. Like, think
That's-
about the
yeah.
times you go into Hy-Vee and you hear some teenager call another teenager that stuff, or even an adult,
or
right?
even construction,
Construction, or
you know, trades or something
yeah,
that's
trades.
that's more blue collar, I
Or
guess.
think about those movies where it's about like the stock market trading.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
like
yeah,
trader,
they're-
like, geez Louise.
They're cutthroat.
And so, like, that whole paradigm shifted for me, right? Like, how about like a thing like, and I know I'm going on a tangent, but for you, showing up on time, right? That used to be huge for us.
Yes.
We were like, get to practice on time, get to class on time, get to this appointment on time, get to work on time.
Yeah.
But how many coworkers do we know show up like right as that first?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
And
It's
they
like,
may get
what are
talked to, but like same thing. Like I listen to students and they talk about, well, I go, hey, if you're late too many times, you get fired. And they go, no, I'm not. I'm late every day.
Yeah.
Or my mom's late every day. Like she literally gets out the door 10 minutes late every day.
Yeah.
And she's not fired.
And they just don't have enough people or not enough people are working that they
Yeah.
can't, which is crazy.
Whatever the reason is. Yeah.
When you talked about cortisol, that's one thing that it's hard. I really try to catch myself sometimes, and I fail. I do. As a parent of,
Well, we're
if it's
human. All of us
it's
do,
a
yeah.
stressful day, you know. So like when you come home, something that's little that really shouldn't set you off,
Yeah.
that you should just talk through with
Yeah.
with one of your kids, you know, at home, one of your own kids, and like it just elevates you. And then I'm like, I've honestly thought before, I'm like, this is raising their cortisol levels. That is not good. And not that this is not an everyday thing.
Yeah.
But and that's where I feel so bad is like, I know if I yell and they yell, that the stress hormones, you know, cortisol is it's going through the roof.
Right.
And it's like, you got to catch yourself. But it's hard. Like, it's hard sometimes, especially after a bad day and you're dealing with a lot of dipshits.
Well, that's the thing too. Is you know Murphy's law, and we can't catch ourselves on that sometimes. But you're right. Like, and this comes from someone who did behavior intervention for 10 years, right? And I've written curriculums for behavior intervention, and I still catch myself, right? And I again, we're not perfect. We're human. The idea though is I think at the end of the day, it's about communication, like you said, right?
Yeah.
And I think the better that you can get at that, and the better you can get kids to express it verbally versus I'm gonna effing kill that, you know, so and so, which we hear quite a bit.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if those of you who are educators didn't know, there's a new state law in Iowa about that threats, and you probably should look into that. But anyhow, I found the more you can communicate, I think that builds credibility with students, right, and parents.
Yep.
And so that's the great thing. So those of you who are new or in your first 3 to 5 years of teaching, or those of you who are on the back end and you're struggling because you're like, oh, I should take early retirement, and because you're having some difficulties, look at how much you're communicating, right? And then also communicating with other staff, right, and also admin. That goes a long way.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to bother somebody. I know you could be like, I just emailed the parent yesterday. I don't want to email them again, but you would rather over communicate than under communicate.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. But in any case, so as far as everything else goes, how's the school year been going?
Not bad. Not bad. I think some of the new initiatives and more for behavior, I think are doing well.
Yeah.
I really like the phone policy and that I was able to choose what I wanted to do. Like we have an overarching phone policy at the school, but being able for me to choose that, hey, they put them in a manila envelope with Velcro.
Yep.
They can still keep at their desk. That's worked well for me. There's been a couple times I forgot to like hand them out, but then I'll start having kids come up to my desk and like are ready for their envelope because they're used to it. You know,
Yep.
It was a pushback at first, but now it's better. So, but it's been a pretty good year so far. Pretty, knock on wood, pretty tame. What about you?
Same deal, man. Like the hard part is, so I've been wrapping my brain around for several years now, and you know this.
I'm going to cut you off. Hey, did we talk about that you're back?
No, yeah, we did. Yeah, we
Did
did.
we?
When Bree was here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, way back in. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, good question though.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I've been trying to wrap my brain around this, and if I ever figure it out, remind me, Chris, to write a book and go on talking tours. But about climate and culture.
Yeah.
and not just with students, but also teachers, staff.
Yeah.
And how do we get districts back to this idea of here's how we do things? If you're not happy here, there are 500 other districts in the state of Iowa
Yes.
that would gladly take you now because of the open voucher system. And just getting to that point of districts really having more empowerment, right? To
Yep.
run things that are best for the majority and not for those 20% like the Pareto effect
Well,
says.
and I think we get lost sometimes too. And it was always like, well, what can we do for that one kid?
Right.
But in the shuffle, then you get lost. Like, what about the 29 other kids are doing a great job?
Yep. Because
And
we
this-
would change their schedule. We would change the 29 schedules to accommodate the one.
One kid. Yeah. And I think that shift is starting to go because parents, I think one of it is parents are starting to push back is like, why is my kid being affected negatively because you're accommodating or kowtowing to this one student?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I think parents need to speak out about that too.
Absolutely. And, and for several years, there's been websites that rate schools and stuff like that, But I think the idea that more information's coming out, the idea about teacher efficacy, and then also on top of it, the student demographic and makeup. And so, no, I've just been really wrapping my brain around that idea of climate and culture. And, it stems back from when we coached, right?
Yep.
If you're trying to build a program, you got to have some decent stuff on that. So, but as far as that goes, no, things are going well. We're developing some different criterion, trying to figure out how to, get students to understand that and back to that graduation question, which is, do students understand what it takes to graduate?
Yep.
And it's back to that idea of like, here's the criterion. If you're going to graduate from our school district, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's not just showing up. It's not just, wandering from class to class and trying to do something, right? There's some benchmarks, some requirements, and
Yeah. I like what we're starting to do. And
yeah.
like we said, hold kids accountable. And I think, and it's too bad, like behaviors get to a point where it's like, okay, we got to do something. And I think we're kind of at that almost tipping point of now we're like, okay, we're not going to allow this.
Yeah.
So if you can't handle it, maybe there's another place for you.
But it's the nature of trying to move from being reactive to proactive,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And I would say education itself for the last probably 60 years has been reactive. We wait till something happens and then we say, what's the solution? Instead of saying, hey, a trend we've been seeing is that students are not attending class.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we going to do? Like, it's not the reactive of, okay, this kid did it again, that kid did it again. Okay, what's the solution? It is, okay, like the cell phones. We said a trend is that for the last several years, cell phones have been an issue. Here's our new policy.
Yep.
Boom, done.
And with everything, teachers need to hold up their end of the bargain. Because we can be like teachers versus administration, things like that. But if they're trying to do something
Yeah.
and 60 or 40% of teachers are doing it and the rest are not,
Yeah.
like they just don't think the effort's worth it,
Yeah.
it's not going to work. So
No.
I will, as a teacher, I will blame some teachers that
Yeah.
they don't want to do it.
Well, and you're not hypocritical because you just admitted that, you do that sometimes. And I do that too, right? Like we forget. But it's during usually probably those class periods where kids are really good about doing it, right?
Yeah, and
And-
it's forgetting is one thing.
Yeah.
Just refusing to,
Yes, refusing, yes.
refusing is it's crazy.
Yes.
That's where it's like, okay, this may not be the school for you as a teacher. You know,
Yeah, because you're just not a quote unquote team player at that point. I mean, you would rather. It's a survival mode. I get it. However, if we're a staff and we're trying to do something,
Yeah.
let's work together. Right?
it's just like with your own kids. Yes, the fight up front is going to suck,
yes.
but after that,
Yeah.
it'll get smoother.
Yep.
As opposed to not fighting it,
Yep.
getting frustrated, and continuing to get frustrated because you didn't want to do it at the beginning.
Yep.
and you're still fighting the battle.
Still fighting it.
Yeah, it's just it's one of those things. But
Well, to close, my question to you is, what are you working on, I guess, right now? Like, what are you, knowing that our semester ends here shortly, probably about 2 months, what are you working on or trying to accomplish before you
you're trying to catch me, aren't you?
Yeah, come on,
I got
man.
like 3 emails from you today. Yesterday.
I'm that, I'm your quote unquote instructional coach, so
Yeah, you're my
you better be on it.
I'm working on my individual growth plan.
Nice
Like
keyword.
that. Yeah. No, it's just making sure the kids are, continuing to work. I know there's some times that like there's a lull between Thanksgiving and Christmas too, to where, they're like, oh man, it's only 3 weeks, but sometimes it feels like the longest 3 weeks. And just making sure they still have that, that goal and they're excited about it. So that's my biggest thing is just making sure taking care of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? Other than being a pain in the ass to the teachers?
That's an ongoing process I do every day.
That's true.
That's on my vision board. No,
What, a big ass?
so several things in the hopper. We are moving to a virtual school.
Not completely.
Not virtual. No, not completely.
Yeah.
But we're looking at that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I am trying to complete some programming and designing of our work-based programming.
Yep.
We've tried to implement a side project of project-based learning.
Okay.
So I'm pretty close to that one. The hard part is like you pretty much make the criterion up as you go on all this, right? Like there's no one really saying, hey, this is something we want to do. You need to do it. And here's a criterion. It's, hey, we want to do this. You do it. Which is fine. You know me, like, I need that autonomy piece, right? And so got those 3 things going. Also, we're redesigning some things with our credit recovery program. And then also, I'm trying to figure out how to get some more student ownership in their planning. And so I've got some things that we're trying to like formats. Second semester we'll get those going. So, but the end of first semester, we are actually like 40% of standards completed right now, which is ahead of the schedule. And just like you said, trying to keep those kids motivated and keep them ahead of the game, right? So,
Awesome, man. Well, I guess we can wrap up with that. So, everybody, thank you for listening. We're trying to get on to, we're going to start doing some more video. Trying to get maybe something on TikTok or YouTube and just continue Instagram. And then we do have our email address. Belly up to the blackboard podcast at gmail.com.
Email us with whatever you are interested in want us to talk about.
Any teachers want to come on and just talk to? Absolutely. We had, like I said, we had an interview last week and
how'd that go?
It went really well. It went really, really well. So the only problem was when we videoed it, because we used Google Meet, part of mine was because it was kind of choppy. So the interview went well. The audio was great. The audio on the video struggled a little bit, but we'll get that figured out. We're just trying, we're just messing around. So
absolutely.
Hopefully we'll continue to do these more frequently. And
I
then
think so.
After our move, I think we're going to have a designated spot.
Yeah.
So that'll be awesome. So,
all right,
everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. See ya.